Hello everyone, thank you for joining this HCP Live practice brief, a focus on Ebola for practitioners. My name is Dr. Peter Salgo. I'm a professor of medicine and anesthesiology at Columbia University and an associate director of surgical intensive care at the New York Presbyterian Hospital in New York City. Today I'm joined by expert Dr. Alfred DeLuca, an internist and infectious disease specialist in Manalapan, New Jersey. Dr. DeLuca has more than 25 years of experience in the practice of infectious diseases. Dr. DeLuca, welcome. And we're going to get started right away on this. We've got a crisis in our hands worldwide, and there's stuff going on in the United States. We want to focus on a broad range of topics. Now, before we talk about what's happening here in the United States, let's first discuss the Ebola virus itself and what has occurred in West Africa. Now, the Ebola virus was discovered in the 1970s, but it did not spread rapidly until much more recently. So let's talk about this spread. What's different? What's happened now compared to 30, 40 years ago in Africa?
From the initial outbreaks of Ebola and some of its variant species, these were very confined and remote areas. And like most lethal illnesses, it took care of itself because of its remoteness without contact with surrounding areas.
Only a doctor could say it took care of itself. It burned through these villages, killed everybody it could, and then went away without any new victims, right?
Right. It is maintained as a zoonosis among different species of fruit bats and non-human primates.
Right. Look, from what we can tell, dogs have antibodies to Ebola. Bats seem to have Ebola, fruit bats for one thing. These are viruses which, if they had to rely on infecting humans, probably wouldn't be here because the humans would die. So there has to be some other...
Correct. An ideal host for a virus would be one that maintains its life cycle and not kills the host.
Mm-hmm. So how is Ebola similar to other viruses, and how does it differ?
I think they are the same in one regard in that they belong to a family of viruses. It's an RNA virus that's a long filamentous strand, and we are frankly still learning quite a bit about its pathogenicity and what it can and can't.
It's a long filovirus, right? And yes, it's an RNA virus that doesn't do a very good job of reproducing itself, but it does it good enough to kill people.
No, it's certainly a prolific replication that goes on in the individual patient.
Now, when you hear about epidemics, and people talk about the Ebola epidemic, they look for other viral epidemics to compare it to. And one that always comes up is the 1918 influenza worldwide epidemic that followed World War I. Why do you think people draw these parallels?
Because there are no other analogies that would be suitable for modern times. The 1918 influenza epidemic has been well described, but remember that was in the pre-antibiotic era. There was no vaccine at the time. And as lethal as it was, by itself, many people unlikely died of bacterial superinfections and pneumonias that were untreatable. So it's really hard to say when they talk about a death toll from the pre-penicillin era and that kind of an epidemic. But the lessons are still there. What we don't have now is a preventable illness. Yearly influenza vaccine has been enormously effective in reducing the number of cases and deaths naturally, and but no vaccine is on the horizon just yet.
For at least not immediately.
Correct.
But you know, people point to this influenza epidemic, and they look at something different. It's not just there were no antibiotics, but that there had been other influenza outbreaks. This one killed a lot more people. They were stacking up the bodies. So I guess part of what people are talking about when they talk about the influenza epidemic is it seemed to be more lethal, more virulent, for whatever reason, and then it went away. You know, Ebola goes away too, but comes back.
It comes back, and now it's got itself set up in an urban area, for lack of a better word, in a major city.
Yeah, Monrovia is big. Yeah.